About a year ago, I did a video on what's running in my home lab, and to my surprise, it's one of my most viewed videos on my entire channel. And this is surprising because at the time, all I was really running was a single server and a Netgate SG1100 with pfSense. So yeah, not super impressive, but you guys seem to like it, so I figured it's been a year, why not do an update video? So that's what we're doing, and honestly, a lot has changed, like a lot. So this is what's running in my home lab 2022 edition. Let's take a look. Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore. This is quite the upgrade. As you can see, welcome to my new home lab. As you can probably tell, yes, it is in my garage, and I do have a dedicated video on that. It is linked up here, and that'll be a common theme. I'll probably be going through a lot of stuff that I already have videos on, so if I do have a video on it, I will try to link a card up here or and down in the description below, or both. So also, if I cover something that you'd like to see a video on, let me know down in the comments, because there's gonna be a lot of stuff here. I can't go into a lot of detail on everything, or else the video would be like 3 hours long. So let's go ahead and start with what you're looking at. This is a 42U rack from Nave Point. It is open air, that is perfectly fine. I'm not really worried about locking panels or anything. Kind of the only one in here, unless my cat decides to try to hack me. But yeah, this thing was, I think, $300–400. Very heavy, made of steel, very strong. Could probably do a pull-up on it. This is probably a bad idea. But yeah, we have 42U worth of space in here, which is plenty enough. As you can see by the B-roll I'm probably running now, we do have a lot of space left for activities. So future videos, if some company wants to send me a Storinator or something, just let you know, I got space. But yeah, super happy with it. It is sitting in my garage, and I do live in Texas. So you're probably thinking, holy crap, it probably gets really hot in there. Yes, but we added an air conditioning unit, dedicated 9,000 BTU mini split unit from Senville. I think it was like $800 off Amazon. Pretty easy to install, definitely needed if you're putting it somewhere like your garage. Well worth the investment, and to make sure that all of my hardware is getting enough cooling, we installed some curtains. Check it out. Hey kid, what's the password? Yeah, it was either do these curtains or build out an entire wall, which, do I look like a handyman carpenter? Don't actually answer that. I know my strengths and weaknesses. So we went the curtain, pretty heavy duty, holds the cool air in, zero complaints. Let's jump into the actual fun stuff and the hardware that I'm running. I lied, I'm a dirty liar. I'm looking at my notes here, and we're just gonna talk about networking first, then the hardware. Well, I guess this is technically hardware still. So at the heart of my system, I do have AT&T fiber. I get a gig up, gig down. Yeah, I know it's not super fast 5 gig, mega holy shit speed, but man, going from my old house with cable to full fat gigabit fiber, but the brains of my system are going to be handled by this guy. This is a Netgate SG4100. And yeah, like I said before, if you saw the previous video, I was running an SG1100, which is basically the cheapest Netgate solution you can get. And going to gigabit, I needed something a little bit more powerful. So we went with the SG4100. I do think Netgate hardware is a bit more expensive than similarly spec'd third-party solutions, but I am a stickler about networking gear. I like dedicated hardware for my networking gear, and figured just go straight through Netgate to get it, so yeah. But I really like pfSense as my main router/firewall operating system. I do have multiple VLANs set up in there. I do have a dedicated VPN so that I can VPN back into my home network from essentially anywhere in the world. And I do have it set up to access my PIA VPN account so that I can make sure certain machines and services within my home network are going through a VPN to access the internet for 100% legal purposes. 100% legal. 100% legal. I'm also running HA proxy within pfSense to act as a reverse proxy so that I can self-host services and websites and whatnot. It just makes it easy to funnel all the traffic in through Cloudflare and then send it to its appropriate endpoint using HA proxy. Highly recommended. Fairly certain I have a video on that. But then you probably noticed this guy right here with the pretty little LCD screen. That is the beginning of my entire Unifi setup. The rest of my network is pretty much composed of Unifi equipment. So let's start at, why not? Start here. This is the 24-port Unifi Enterprise PoE, and I really, really like this switch. It has 24 PoE ports, 12 of them are 1 gig, and 12 of them are 2.5, so I do get that nice mixture of having standard 1 gig PoE and 2.5 for, future-proofing devices. I'm busting out the phone for some of this because I have it all written down. I can't memorize it, I'm old. Then right above it up here, we have a Unifi Flex XG, which is a 4-port 10 gig switch. I don't really utilize it that much. I only really had 2 10 gig devices, and in a previous video, I upgraded my main connection to 40 gig. So we're not really using that too much, but I have it. Now the other half of my switches and Unifi gear is actually in another room in the house. And you're probably wondering, why the hell would you do that? You have this giant 42U rack. Why don't you have everything in there? Well, when we moved in, the house was already wired with Cat 5e, and all of it was terminated into an existing bedroom. And I didn't feel like re-terminating everything into the garage. So what I did was I left all of that terminated there. And what we're actually doing is running a fiber connection from the 24-port enterprise switch to that bedroom, which is connected to a 8-port, an Enterprise 8 PoE, which is a switch with 8 RJ45 ports at 2.5 gig, but it also has 2 SFP plus ports, meaning that we can get a full fat 10 gig fiber connection from our main switch to the switch in the other bedroom. And then from there, I'm essentially running that along with another smaller 1 gig switch to the rest of the terminations in the house. So it's kind of a jank way of doing it, but it really works for me, considering most of the heavy lifting goes directly to my office with a direct 40 gig connection. So yeah, it's weird, I know. Now the controller we're using is actually the Cloud Key version 2, and it's worked great for me. I didn't need anything too crazy because I'm running pfSense as my main firewall, but I actually have a USG Pro that I need to unbox. It's been sitting in my room for like a month. I need to put it in here so that I can start messing around with a secondary Unifi network to test out some of the Unifi firewall features, because I'd like to do some more comparisons, direct comparisons between pfSense, Unifi, and Omada, which you will see in a minute. In terms of Wi-Fi, I'm not running anything too fancy. I have 2 in-wall Wi-Fi AC units and 1 Wi-Fi 6 Pro unit upstairs, so nothing too crazy. I'll probably add some more access points in the future, but for right now, it works for me perfectly fine. Now, I did mention Omada as well. I do run a secondary network, essentially its own VLAN with Omada. You can see up here, I have the ER605 firewall, and that runs directly to my office, which has the OC200 controller with a Jetstream PoE switch and a Wi-Fi 6 access point, and I use that to test out Omada features and do some comparisons between that and pfSense and Unifi and all that good stuff. All right, now let's talk about the hardware. First and foremost, my main server, It's right here. We'll do some B-roll. Actually, so here it is, my main server. This is what I had last year in the home lab tour. Everything was essentially running off of this. Now it was in a desktop system. I did move it to a 4U rack mounted system that I really like, with some easy swap hard drive bays. It was at Roseville. It was like 200 and something bucks. Well worth it. But yeah, in here we have an EPYC 7302, which is a 16 core, 32 thread AMD CPU. We do have 128 gigs of ECC DDR4 memory. It's running on an ASRock rack Rome 8 2T motherboard, which I really like. I think it was a little pricey, but most server grade motherboards are. I'm just gonna hold the phone, I'm sorry. We are running an HBA card, an LSI 9201. It's a 16i card, so we have compatibility for 16 direct drive connections. And I think if you use like some breakout cards, you can get up to something ridiculous like 128 drives or something, but this only holds 12, I believe, so we're good with a single card. And for storage, we have 64 terabytes of raw storage in here. That's enough for now. In the future, I will probably have to upgrade, but luckily we have space. So this server is running Proxmox, and that is my main go-to hypervisor of choice. I do have TrueNAS Core virtualized in here, which runs as my main NAS. I really, really like TrueNAS. But in here, we're also running a dedicated Plex virtual machine. I have run some gaming virtual machines in here as well. And I am running Portainer, which is my main Docker instance, which houses a whole bunch of different services, ranging from SyncThing to multiple Minecraft servers, to my RStack, which is really cool. Maybe a video on that. My Little Link website, shout out to Techno Tim, Uptime Kuma, and a whole bunch of other random services. So while it sounds like I might have a lot running on here, it's really not. I am not pushing this system anywhere near its limits. This thing is so future-proof that version 50 of this video, I'll still probably be using this system. Okay, moving on to my backup system. And of course, it's up there. I'm not moving this camera again. And this is my backup system sitting in a 2U case. Previously was a tower just like my main system, but obviously if you're getting a 42U freaking rack, you're probably gonna rack mount most of your stuff. Now again, we are running Proxmox, and hardware-wise, we are running a Xeon 1240L V3, which is a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. We have 16 gigs of DDR3 ECC RAM. It's running on a Jinyu X99 motherboard. It has 48 terabytes of raw storage, and I am running a single LXC container on here to house my Docker/Portainer instance so that I can run SyncThing to make sure that everything on my main server is synced directly to my backup server. And I also use that container to test out some other services. Moving on, luckily we don't have to go too far. We're going right above it. A nice little slim boy 1U server. This is actually a Dell PowerEdge R210 version 2, and I think I got it for a pretty decent deal on eBay. I was nervous about it being 1U and it being super loud, but I am running a script that interfaces with the BIOS to make sure that the fans don't go all ape shit. So as you can tell, it's really not that loud at all. But in here, we are running another Xeon. This is the Xeon E3 1275 V2, 4 cores, 8 threads, 16 gigs of DDR3, and honestly, not too much storage. I don't do much storage testing stuff on here. I do like service testing and whatnot. Right now, I think it has Proxmox installed on it, but I've cleaned and wiped this thing and installed so many different operating systems on it that, yeah, I can hardly remember what it currently has. All right, and just below it, you're probably wondering what this is. You probably know what this is if you've watched videos on my channel. This is my Kubernetes cluster, and it is actually 3 different Intel NUCs. Physically, they're different, but the specs are exactly the same. I got them for like 50 bucks each off eBay. Did a little upgrading on them, so each of them is running an i3 4010U. It's a laptop grade processor, so they're very low power. 16 gigs of DDR3 RAM, a 60 gigabyte SSD, and each of them has a 4 terabyte external hard disk drive connected to it through USB. So yeah, a pretty decent little setup. I have a dedicated video on that, and if you want to see me pull all my hair out, I used to have a full head of hair before I tried to learn Kubernetes, so if you want to see how that went, my week of learning Kubernetes, check it out. I'm really happy with this. I like having a dedicated hardware Kubernetes setup. Sure, I could have just virtualized everything, but I don't know. I kind of like the little physical nature of it. But within that system, we are running K3S along with Rancher. For storage, we are running Longhorn, which I think is really cool. I've had a great time, a great experience once Rancher and Longhorn have gotten set up. They've been pretty rock solid so far, which honestly has been a surprise to me. But within here, we are running Nextcloud, my doc site, and Pi-hole. And the cool thing about Kubernetes is that it is highly available. So if any of these physical systems goes down, my Nextcloud will still be accessible outside of my network. My docs website will still be accessible, and I will still have DNS through Pi-hole. So yeah, neat. And you probably saw it down here sitting on my main server. That is my remote server. And you're probably thinking, why is your remote server not remote? Well, I was running at my buddy's house, and I took it back to do some more testing and tweak a few things. So yeah, that is currently being messed with so that I can go redeploy it. But yeah, it's kind of sitting there taking up space for now. And it's not too impressive. It has an i5 4590T, 4-core, 4-thread, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a total of 18 terabytes of storage. So no slouch, but nothing to write home about. And currently it is running TrueNAS scale and using that to host Tailscale, which allows me to make a direct tunnel connection to make sure that everything theoretically will be backed up to a remote location, so that in the event that something happens to my entire server rack, all of my important anime is safe and sound somewhere else. Ooh, that's a lot of stuff. Okay, moving on to like the miscellaneous stuff. So you probably were wondering, what the hell is this? You probably weren't wondering what the hell is this, because I can tell I'm pointing and you guys can't even see it. So right here is honestly one of my favorite things in the rack. This is a Triplite 8-port KVM. It's got a 15-inch screen, and yeah, check it out. 1U slides right in, comes out, open it up, and I have full access to almost every single server in this rack. I can just spin it up, select which one I want to play with. And as you can see, you're probably not because this is far away, but we're connected directly to my main EPYC-based system, and we can go in, do whatever we want, make some configuration changes in the event that it's not accessible through the web GUI. We can come in here, pull this out, and as if we were sitting right in front of it with a keyboard, mouse, and screen. I don't know why I said it like that. This is literally a keyboard, mouse, and screen. So yeah, really cool. It was honestly pretty cheap on eBay. Came a little dinged up, but I don't really care. It gives it character, Nobody's perfect. And then down here, I'm not moving the camera. I'm not moving the camera again. But down here, we have another Triplite piece of hardware, but this is my main UPS. It is a 900 watt system. It runs everything right now. I do want to get a secondary UPS because right now, in a full power failure, I get about 9 minutes, and depending on what I'm running or what's running. Worst case, 9 minutes, best case, like 15 minutes. It's really good at protecting against like power surges and blips, but I'd like to have 2 separate systems to get a little bit more in the event of a full power loss. But yeah, other random things. I have 2 surge protectors in here. I have a, I don't even know what this is called, patch panel to make everything all look nice and pretty. Some cable covers, and so yeah, as you can see, a lot has changed in the last year. Total all-in price on everything, including networking, probably spent around 10 grand. So that is a lot of money. Now, I know there's a lot of you out there who have spent much more, and a lot of you are thinking, dear God, I'd never spend 10 grand on some computers. I completely understand both ends of the spectrum, trust me. A lot of you out there do not need this. This is not a flex. I know this is completely overkill, but this is a hobby of mine. So I think that pretty much covers everything. I got this little shelf over here. Can you see that? Look at that. That's about the extent of my handyman qualifications, that I put in a shelf to store a whole bunch of crap, and remote for the air condition, and a terrible light. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Let's head back upstairs and wrap this up. All right, that is my home lab tour 2022. I'm super happy with it. I know it's a lot of money. I know it's a lot of overkill. I don't recommend a lot of the stuff I have to 99.999% of the people, but again, I have a YouTube channel. I like learning. I like sharing my experience with you guys. That's all part of the fun, and it's a hobby to me, so I just consider it more of a hobby expense. My advice to you guys out there that are looking to get into home labbing is to start small and work your way up piece by piece depending on how your needs change. So go out there, get a Dell Optiplex, start with a Raspberry Pi, take an old desktop and throw Ubuntu server on there, throw Proxmox on there, throw TrueNAS on there, throw Unraid on there, whatever. Just start somewhere and just do things, learn, break stuff. That's how it goes. Every YouTuber you see, every expert you see started somewhere. They've made millions of mistakes. They've broken things. They've hosed entire systems. Trust me, don't be afraid to just get started. But that is it. I hope you liked it. I hope you found it somewhat entertaining. If you did, please drop a like below. If you like content like this, then please consider subscribing. I'd like to give a huge shout out to my Patreons and YouTube members. You guys are my 42U rack support system, and honestly, you've made a lot of this possible. I sincerely appreciate it. So you guys are awesome. But if you're still around watching to the bitter end, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.